Here representing the Humane Society of the United States, the nation's largest animal protection organization, and our thousands of supporters and members here in Rhode Island, and the 68% of Rhode Island voters who are in support of this bill. You're going to see you've got a packet in front of you. There's the polling numbers in that packet. In 2012, the Rhode Island legislature led the way in animal welfare by phasing out the use of gestation crates and veal crates, giving breeding sows and calves enough room to stand up, lie down, turn around, and fully extend their limbs, which is wonderful. Unfortunately, that law exempts egg-laying chickens who suffer immensely when they're kept in barren wire battery cages like this one. In addition, the majority of eggs, pork, and veal sold in Rhode Island comes from animals who are confined in similarly cruel conditions. So this bill remedies that inconsistency in the law and helps prevent cruelty to animals. To briefly just touch on what exactly these cruelties are. This is the battery cage. This is a real battery cage that was taken from a facility in Connecticut that closed down. There are usually between 5 and even up to 10 chickens in a cage. And if you have an iPad at home and can picture the size of that, that's about the size of space each bird has on which to live her entire life. So it's obviously cruel. They can't spread their wings or perform normal behaviors important to their welfare. Gestation crates is the second type of cruelty this bill addresses. It's that middle picture on the front of your packet. And those are narrow crates that female breeding sows are kept in. They're too narrow for them to turn around. They're kept in there basically immobilized for their entire lives. Pigs are social, intelligent animals. They're often compared to dogs in terms of personality and intelligence, so they suffer immensely in these cages. Thankfully, like I mentioned, Rhode Island has banned the use of gestation crates here, which is great, but the vast majority of pork sold in the state comes from the offspring of breeding sows who are confined in such a cruel way, so this bill will fix that. The last type of cruelty this bill addresses is the use of veal crates, which is the left picture on the front of the packet. That's similar to gestation crates in that it's a narrow crate. They're unable to turn around. They're also sometimes tethered by the neck, further inhibiting their movement, so they can't really even lie down comfortably. Of course, these are baby animals. They're playful, but they're virtually immobilized for their entire lives. So some veal sold in Rhode Island comes from animals abused in this way, and we're hoping to remedy that with this bill as well. The very crux of this bill is really in line with the amazing corporate progress on this front. There are lots of behemoth-sized corporations making the switch to 100% cage-free eggs and crate-free pork, including Walmart, Target, McDonald's, Unilever, which produces Hellmann's mayonnaise, and more. And locally, Charlestown Mini Super and the Greengrocer in Portsmouth already sell 100% cage-free eggs. And Stop and Shop is set in 2022 to sell 100% cage-free eggs as well, which is on the same timeline as this bill. I'd like to point out that this bill is almost identical to a Massachusetts law that passed by ballot in November. This this ballot measure passed by a whopping 78% of the vote, which was a greater margin of victory than any animal protection measure in history. It won majorities in every county, every congressional district, which just showed how strong and broad the support for animal protection measures is. As I mentioned, here in Rhode Island, 68% of Rhode Island voters support this bill. So do 29 farmers and farm groups, and the Ocean State Animal Coalition, which you'll hear from. Also, national groups, such as the National Consumers League, the United Farm Workers, the ASPCA, and others support this bill as well. In addition, 11 U.S. states have already addressed this kind of cruel confinement, and the entire European Union has as well. I think you're going to hear a lot about food prices tonight, and I'd like to go ahead and address that. So the changes proposed by this measure, though they're really critical, are eminently affordable. There was a study out of Iowa State University that compared gestation crate systems for breeding sows with group housing, and it showed that it can be 11% less to use the group housing, which is so much better for their welfare. Regarding eggs, there are studies that show cage-free egg production costs an extra 1 to 2 pennies more per egg, which is very affordable, especially when you're considering all these hidden prices that were not reflected on the shelves, including cruelty to animals and food safety concerns. In fact, major retailers like McDonald's and, for example, have said that they're not going to raise prices a single cent, and other really cost-conscious corporations like Dollar Tree and Taco Bell are also making these changes, so this is very affordable. There's another very important part to this bill, which is protecting public and protecting Rhode Island consumers from substandard and possibly unsafe food. There are numerous peer-reviewed studies that show higher rates of salmonella in cage facilities versus cage-free. In fact, World Poultry Magazine, which is an industry poultry magazine, said that salmonella thrives in cage housing. That was the headline of one of their articles. And I unfortunately have personal experience with salmonella poisoning. When I was 3 years old, I got it from eating tainted eggs. I was in the hospital for many days, and I'm sure it cost a pretty penny for my parents to have me in there. They were beside themselves, of course, because the doctor actually thought I might die. And I feel like no parent should have to go through that experience. And so if this bill even prevents one case of salmonella poisoning, I think it's worth it. I would like to point out, too, kind of the elephant in the room, or maybe the chicken in the room, that there is one facility here in Rhode Island that does use these cages. And with the massive corporate change to cage-free, they're going to have to switch if they want to be a viable business in the very near future, especially because Massachusetts, neighboring next door, 2022 is the timeline, Stop and Shop, Walmart, all of these giant places. So there are certain organizations out there that see the need and are offering grants to help make the switch to cage-free facilities. And I'm hoping to be able to connect Eli with those sources to help him, because we want his business to thrive, we want animals to be protected, and we want Rhode Island consumers to be protected. So I ask that you please vote yes, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Representative.
I'm a city boy, but I went to Eli's farm.
Oh, yeah.
Changed my mind. I mean, I see how they are here, and I was skeptical too until you actually go out and see it. I understand where we're at, and who wants to hurt an animal? But I also don't want to put the poor fellow out of business, you know? And like I said, I was skeptical till I actually went down there and seen it for myself. And I was quite impressed by it. And I didn't see a lot of stuff that I wanted to see, or what I thought I should see, and put these chickens clamped up. And it was quite impressive, and I can understand it. I just don't want to hurt the poor fellow, you know?
Sure.
Remember, that's his livelihood. I don't want to put him out of business for animals that he uses for his market, for eggs.
Sure.
You know, that's what I'm concerned about. It does this bill hurt that fellow?
Thank you for your comment. So there's, I think Dr. Sarah Shields from Humane Society International will discuss the welfare of chickens and how maybe it doesn't look particularly like they're suffering, but it's the lack of ability to perform these natural behaviors that causes that. On a separate note, because like I mentioned, these corporations are moving to 100% cage-free, it's going to have to happen sooner or later if it's going to be viable for the long term. So, and also, because this bill requires all eggs sold in Rhode Island to be cage-free, that holds all producers to the same standard no matter where they are. So that's also...
He's a Rhode Islander. You know, I have a hard time putting Rhode Island out of business. I really do have a hard time with that.
Sure.
You know, and I understand that. And if there a caveat in there, or carve out, until he can get there, or, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, so this bill gives a phase-out timeline of until 2022, which is in line with other measures and other timelines for corporations. So that's ample time to make the switch, and we do want him to be successful long-term. That's why we think that now is the time to go ahead and make that switch instead of waiting until it's too late.
And I wouldn't be saying that, but I went there, I've seen the place. I mean, like I said, I'm a city kid. You know, I mean, I didn't see what I would want to see. And I only say this because that's a business in Rhode Island, and I don't want to be the cause of him losing his livelihood. I won't be part of that.
Sure. Well, we don't want him to go out of business either. That's why I want to try to connect him with that help that will hopefully move him in better shape for this cage-free future that's obviously happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So other questions? Well, I'll come back, Brenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What would be the cost of converting to cage-free versus
Sure.
what he's currently at?
Sure, so it depends on the type of system he prefers. There are a couple of different types. There's a floor-based system where the birds are all on the floor. That's a less expensive system to put in. That, I think, with the cage-free manufacturers that we know, I think it costs about $90,000. Thankfully, I think there are grant monies out there that can help move towards that. and make the business viable for the long term. There are also aviaries, which are multi-tiered systems that have perches and things like that. That's more expensive to put in, but the floor-based systems are fairly affordable, and if you want to be successful long term, I think it's going to have to happen just because of the corporate progress, let alone if this happens.
And this particular farmer could use his current facility to do that?
Well, we'd have to explore that more. I think that the barn could probably be converted. Yeah, he'll be talking. Thank you.
Let's see,
No, that was my question. I was going to inquire about the grants. You had mentioned the grants. I wanted to say your presentation was great and very well informed me on things. As I said, I haven't visited the farm. I didn't have knowledge of that, but just your whole presentation, it gives us a grasp of where our food comes from and everything like that. But as Rep. Hull was saying, he had visited and he had seen the facility, but I was just curious of the expenditure that it would cost at a minimum. You're saying it could possibly be $90,000,
I would think.
and the phase-in would be 2022.
Correct.
All right. And then those grants, are they easily accessible? Do you have to jump through fiery hoops for them? Or
That's a good question.
So
there are small grants out there that are pretty readily available. What we're hoping to see, there are organizations including Global Animal Partnership that are starting to move into the grant-making space, so they haven't done it yet, but they're very seriously looking, and that's actually who I connected Eli with. Hopefully they're going to be able to speak on the phone soon. So I don't think it would be a magic wand that could make it happen, but there are opportunities out there that I would really love to see happen for him, because again, we want the best for his business, we want the best for animals and Rhode Island consumers.
And I think that's where we're going to try to see what the best of the best is, to meet in the middle on something like that, because as we said, we don't want businesses to go out of business, but we're looking at something that's nationally happening, and we just want to make sure we're not putting any financial burdens on folks either. So when you brought up the grants, do you know of any places that have gone and applied for these grants, and how much money towards these systems that they're actually being allocated? Is it like 20%? Is it like 50%?
Yeah, I think for a lot of these grants that exist right now, it's a small percent. But because these organizations especially see that every egg producer eventually is going to have to move to cage-free egg production, they want to hurry that process up so that the supply is there for when all of these corporate commitments do come into place. So does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.